Yo, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet Violet VGC video. I'm your host Jose Rocks, and today I have a really cool video for you guys. So Regulation G part 2 is right around the corner, so we are gonna go ahead and go full steam into the Regulation G content. I am gonna be posting a couple of more Regulation H gameplay battles, but other than that, it's just gonna be straight Regulation G content, since that's our next format. And as of now, we don't know what the next format is gonna be, so we're just gonna enjoy this Reg G for this second time around, but it's probably the last time because I think we're gonna go into a double restricted format. But I wanted to do it like a quick video for you guys who, if this is your first time in Regulation G, if you didn't play it the previous time, then I want to go ahead and give you guys 20 archetypes that you need to prepare for when you're building your teams for Reg G, right? Just for the start of the format. If you did play Reg G and you just kind of forgot what the meta was because you got so wrapped up in Regulation H, which was an amazing regulation, by the way, 10 out of 10 for me, then this is just going to bring you back to let you know what was good before and kind of some of the Pokemon that you saw at Worlds that did really good. That's kind of what this list is just going to help you prepare for. It's just a lot of those teams, right? So getting into our first team that I want to go over, we have to start with the team that won Worlds, which is going to be Miraidon. And this team is really strong, right? So this team really aims to sweep you with Choice Specs Miraidon. This is actually not the Electric Terror one, which does even more damage, but this still does a lot of damage. Electro Drift in the terrain with like Helping Hand pressure from like Fergraph is still able to one-shot like a lot of different mons, right? And the idea behind this team was that with Whimsicott and Light Screen, you give all these Pokemon extra bulk, except really Urshifu because it's Focus Sash. But the extra bulk on Heart Flame, Iron Hands, also with Assault Vest, Fergraph with the Electric Seed, then you put up Light Screen. Like, these mons are really hard to knock out. Even the Whimsicott can get, pretty difficult to knock out. So this team is really strong. And it's something that you definitely need to have checks for, because people, it was the last recent team that won Worlds, right? And with this regulation coming back, you best believe that a lot of people are going to be trying out Miraidon and trying to see how strong it is, especially how strong this team is, right? And this is going to be kind of like the base that people are going to probably build from. There's going to be a lot of adaptations, right? But you are going to run into this team, so you just need to be prepared for it, because it's shown that it's really good if it was able to win a world championship, right? So this is why I want to start off with this Miraidon 2024 Worlds winning team, and it's something that we're going to see in the next format. Next, we have Miraidon with Electric Terrain. So these teams are going to be something that you also need to prepare for, because they can sneak up on you, right? And what sneaks up on you is Iron Bundle. It's surprisingly really good, because with this type of set, on this type of team, you can run like a Focus Sash on it. And I'm not saying that you'll see all these on the same team, right? But this is just the idea of that you'll see Miraidon plus any of these, right? And our Iron Bundle is really good at allowing Miraidon to have speed control. So let's say you're going up against like a Flutter Mane, right? And that Flutter Mane is booster energy, but it's not max speed. You can go max speed on the Iron Bundle, go for Icy Wind, and allow your Miraidon to outspeed that Flutter Mane, right? And if they are max speed on their Flutter Mane with booster energy, you still outspeed them with Iron Bundle, and then it's a 50-50 speed tie between whether it moves first or Miraidon moves first, right? So you're able to give yourself those odds, as well as things like to protect in front of Miraidon to kind of see what you're gonna lock into with like your Choice Specs, right? And if they do that, if they protect and try to see what you lock into to see whether it's electric move or a dragon type move, or even if you Terra, now you can go with Encore on Iron Bundle and Encore them into the move that they just into a protect, or into a move that didn't really do a lot of damage or something like that, and then like the board position is really yours, right? And then you really can run Freeze Dry on this set, but with Miraidon having the electric coverage, Freeze Dry is not necessarily needed. So you could run something like maybe like a water type attack, which is usually not really seen on Iron Bundle because Hydro Pump is so inconsistent. But if you just want to give Miraidon some extra bulk, you can run something like Chilling Water, and then of course Icy Wind. If you really just want to run Freeze Dry, you can run Blizzard. You can run Aurora Veil too if you just want to give well, that's if you have the snow up, right? So you really probably don't want to run that. But it's more moves. You can run Taunt too, just to give you some more utility. You can run Electric Terrain, which can outplay like Rillabooms and side spam teams when they want to set up in front of you. Just a lot of different things. You can run Rain Dance in case you want to make it a rain team. Helping Hand, which is also something you might see instead of something like Chilling Water if you don't really need the water coverage. You want Helping Hand because fire types If you have an Urshifu on this team, it's not necessarily that you need it. And Miraidon, fire types don't resist electric and dragon, right? So it's not like you necessarily need it. It's really like fairies and grass types. And that's why you can probably, if it's going to be grass, then you probably can just run an ice type attack instead of helping hand. I don't think about it. So I guess freeze dry would probably be the best bet. Or even if you want to just have a more powerful ice type attack, you can run ice beam. Since like, because you have electric type coverage, you're not really worried about water types, right? So you could run something like that instead of the freeze dry. Most people are probably just going to run freeze dry just so Iron Bundle's not walled by water types. But I'm just trying to give you guys, you know, just some different ideas of what you can run on this Iron Bundle. And this is kind of something I'm considering like building my Miraidon team around. I think that Iron Bundle could be really fun on this team. You're going to see like Iron Valiant. Also, they can run Focus Sash as well on this type of team. And Iron Valiant app offers something different from Iron Bundle because it has Wide Guard, right? So you got Wide Guard. It also gets Encore, which is very threatening. And then you have Fairy and Fighting coverage, which is really unique, right? And you can also go for something like Taunt. It also gets Coaching in case you want to lead it next to like a physical attacker, right? And then you can go with like Close Combat if you want. You can go with Moonblast because it can be a physical attacker or a special attacker. And you go with something like Aura Spear, right? So it's up to you how you want to run. Iron Valiant has a lot of different, you know, it's a billion different sets that this Pokemon can run. And it was very close to winning the World Championship, actually. I think it got second place. So it is a really cool Pokemon, and it's you should be prepared for it as well. And it most likely you're going to see it a lot on Miraidon teams. Iron Hands, it fits really well with Miraidon, even though you're doubling down on like electric type attacks. This thing just does really good into like a lot of different checks into Miraidon, and just being like a bulky user that can take advantage of electric terrain and get an attack boost, right? And next we have Sneasler. Sneasler, I think, is going to be a new adaptation to Miraidon teams. We saw how good Sneasler was in Regulation H, and why Urshifu does outclass it. I think that Sneasler can do some interesting things with an electric seed, and of course you're going to be running Unburden, so that you can use the terrain. Now it's going to be pretty interesting to see if this has a place in the meta, because you still get outsped by a fair amount of like Tailwind, like Flutter Mane with booster energy and stuff like that. But if it's just regular, you know, Flutter Manes with booster energy, then you getting a +2 on your speed, you actually outspeed them, right? So this Sneasler can actually be really fast. It actually might be faster than Iron Bundle at +2 than Iron Bundle is at 1. I gotta do the math on that, right? But it may be faster than it. But it's just Sneasler can fit on these teams. You just have to figure out how you want to build around it. All right, next we have, this is going to be another dominant Pokemon in this format, and this is going to be Calyrex, Shadow Rider, Side Spam. So these teams are going to be running Expanding Force, right? And they're going to aim to like sweep you with like just powerful Psychic type damage. And they say, oh, you want to bring your Dark types to be immune? Then we're going to bring like Urshifu, right? And Urshifu's going to be able to handle those Dark types that are immune to Side Spam, right? And also they might run something like Fairy coverage, like Draining Kiss, or like Fairy Terror, which also helps you with the Dark types. Or you can run something like even more aggressive with like Terra Fighting and then Terra Blast, right? And this helps you get around the Dark types, right? And then of course you got Urshifu on your team, right? And then also they'll have Chi-Yu, which boosts the power of like Expanding Force if it's next to Chi-Yu if you switch out your Indeedee, which makes, you know, Expanding Force pretty much one-shot everything if you go with something like a Stellar Terror or even like Psychic Terror. It's like very hard to switch. This is like the strongest Expanding Force that you can have, and it's like extremely hard to switch into, right? And the Chi-Yu's on there to help you deal with the Steel types, as well as just give you some good matchups to like normal types and stuff like that that might be like really bulky. You can just hit them with like powerful Side Spam plus like Fire type attacks, right? And then also Landorus is really good on these teams because it goes well with Chi-Yu, as well as being able to help deal with the Steel types that resist these Side Spam stuff, right? So these teams can be really threatening. And then Indeedee, of course, if you try to think, okay, this team is hyper offense, I just bring Trick Room, right? These Indeedees usually carry Imprison, right? And they go for Imprison and just shut down your Trick Room mode so that they can always outspeed you and then start to remove everything. So you got to be careful when it comes down to that. And next we have the other type of Calyrex Shadow teams that, you know, Wolfie kind of introduced into the format at the beginning of it. But these teams, it really aim to like, it's pretty much, you know, Protect the King type teams where you set up with Calm Mind or Nasty Plot. It can be Calm Mind to get the special defense boost or Nasty Plot just to boost quicker. And then they'll have something like Fake Out with these two, and then Clefairy with Redirection and Friend Guard just to give you extra bulking. They're usually running like Terra Fairy and have Draining Kiss, so they're able to like heal back, right? They can even run something like Leftovers, Covert Cloak. I think Covert Cloak is actually the scariest one because you can't snarl this thing down, which snarl is like a really good move to click into this. And with Covert Cloak, you can't snarl them, and they can heal with like, you know, Rillaboom. Give Clefairy like Life Dew, so you can go for like Protect, Life Dew. Of course, Follow Me. Sometimes they even tech on Sing. It just gives you out in a lot of different situations, and you really want to run Protect on Clefairy too, right? And then they'll have like Draining Kiss plus Astro Barrage, right? And then they're able to like heal back a lot of damage. Plus with the Grassy Terrain, Life Dew, it's just a lot of healing, right? And then you could swap out your Fake Out users, continue to pivot between Rillaboom and Incineroar. And this core just becomes like increasingly hard to break through, right? And a huge tech that came up to deal with this was like Normal-Terra Gholdengo, which was able to like break through this this core. And of course, you have to get around the Fake Outs, right? But you can have something like Psychic Terrain or Ferrograph next to Gholdengo, and that's how you kind of slow down the Fake Out wars. And Calyrex does not do really well at removing Normal-Terra Gholdengo, or does it do well at removing Ferrograph from the field, right? So you're able to successfully keep them from faking you out and continue to put on a lot of pressure with like Nasty Plot, Make It Rain. If they Terra, then you hit them on the Fairy type, right? They don't Terra, you hit them with the Ghost type move. So Gholdengo's a really good counter, and you're gonna really probably see that set in order to deal with this, right? But of course, they will have an Urshifu, so you got to be careful of that, because if you do Terra into normal to be immune to Astral Barrage, then Urshifu just clicks close combat into you, right? So that's also how you deal with like the normal types that threaten Calyrex. Well, not threaten it, but threaten being like immune to it as far as defensively, not offensively. Next, we have these Calyrex hard Trick Room teams. Now, these teams are going to be like really irritating to fight against, because you see them and you know that they want to get Trick Room up. They're going to use Smurgle. Smurgle's going to be probably annoying, have a bunch of random moves like Decorate, Spore, Wide Guard, Fake Out. You're not going to know what it's carrying. And you know what they want to do is get Trick Room up and sweep you on the Trick Room. But you most of the times, if you don't build your team in a way to counter this, you won't be able to stop it, right? And that can be really frustrating when you're playing against like hard Trick Room, because you know they want to get Trick Room up, but you forgot to build good Trick Room answers into your team. So these kind of be like an auto loss. Like if you don't have a Trick Room answer to hard Trick Room, it's an auto loss, right? And sometimes when Trick Room lose their Trick Room setters, they become auto losses to you, right? So you got to make sure that you have good counters into these. And these teams are going to be built in a way where they know that you want to stop Trick Room. So they have a lot of answers into your Trick Room answers too. So you got to be prepared for that, and just be prepared to counter their counters, right? But hard Trick Room, like I said, it's one of the most frustrating archetypes to play against, because it demands so much respect. And if you don't respect it, then those auto losses just feel really bad, especially if you're like a tournament and you can't have too many losses to make top cut. Like just having a guaranteed loss against a team like this just feels really bad. So make sure that you guys build your trick room answers, whether it's like your own trick room sweeper or something like Imprison to like stop trick room from going up, or something like that can break through Smurgle like an Urshifu or something like that, and then just one shot Calyrex, which is very hard to do. But you have to do something to deny the trick room, otherwise you just get swept by it. And these are just some of the partners that are on these teams. You can build these hard trick room teams in a million different ways, but Torkoal and Incineroar or Ursaluna, with them, they're like pretty much the dominant parts of the hard trick room teams. Right. Next we have Calyrex Ice Rain team. So these teams are really cool because I think that these go a different route as not being hard trick room. They can beat you outside of trick room, right? They may have Calyrex, and of course they're going to be carrying something like trick room. But when you see the rest of their team, they're built in a way that they don't necessarily need trick room up, or they may have like coaching on this Urshifu. And with coaching, and you get a defense boost, if you don't have special attackers, they don't even have to set up trick room, right? They can just start sweeping you from turn one, right? And if you think you want to bring your fire type attackers to deal with this type of team, then you have to deal with the Pelipper Rain, and then your fire types getting removed by Urshifu. So it's a really cool strategy, and usually this would be like Choice Scarf, because they can lead Pelippers, go for Helping Hand, Surge Strikes, and just start removing pieces. And when your pieces get removed, it just makes Calyrex life a lot easier, right? And then you think, okay, if they do set up Trick Room, I'm gonna go with a Mobius. Usually they run Terra Grass on the rain teams, So now you can't even spore anything. They may have their own Amoonguss too to heal Calories back up, or Rillaboom, and now you're kind of like stuck out on the field with Amoonguss, not really able to threaten a lot, right? So these teams can be very powerful as well, and they kind of trick you into thinking that they need to lead Trick Room to get it up, and then they have like a completely different lead, like Fake Out Surgeon Strikes or Helping Hand Surgeon Strikes, and then you just get swept from that point. So you got to be careful when you're playing these teams. All right, so next we're gonna have, oh, give me 1 second, our Zamazenta balance team. So these teams are like, I was a huge advocate for Zamazenta before Regulation G started the first time, and it was like the first team I featured, and I showed that it was really good before a lot of people were really using Zamazenta because they were still kind of thinking that Zacian was gonna be, elite this year. Even I did think that, right? But I also believed in Zamazenta. Well, I believed in both the dogs, right? But it turns out Zamazenta is the better dog now. And it may be that way going forward since now that it has access to body press, which is a huge upgrade for it, and the fact that Zacian doesn't get attack boosted when it switches out. Plus, they also nerfed Zacian's attack pretty strongly, actually. But these teams are going to be really strong. You can see the iron defense sets. Those are always going to be really good iron defense body press. But then you might run into some that don't carry iron defense and have wide guard instead. And they just aim to deal big damage, and body press still does a lot when it's next to Chin Power, right? Sometimes you'll see like a Pelipper on these teams just to give you some, just turn it to a fire type attack to a neutral type attack because it's the damage is halved in the rain, and that kind of protects your Zamazenta from things like Chiyus and stuff like that, right? You're gonna usually see like a Grass Terror or like a Dragon Terror. Grass Terror goes really good on rain teams, but Dragon Terror does good if you have a team like this that doesn't have a rain setter, right? Just so you can, or even like Terra Water, just so you can resist like fire type damage, right? Ground type damage becomes neutral and fighting type coverage becomes neutral. So you just gotta watch out for a couple common weaknesses that Zamazenta has. But other than that, it's really, powerful and able to sweep with these type of teams. So Zamazenta balance is definitely something that you got to be prepared for. And you're also probably gonna see like Incineroar on these teams, right? To allow Zamazenta to set up. But Zamazenta is so good in my opinion. And here's the other one, Zamazenta, that I was talking about, the Zamazenta Rain, that you'll see with the Pelipper, right? And then, like I said, these are usually like the Terra Grass on these sets, so that Zamazenta is able to thrive in the rain. And rain is very hard to deal with because a lot of Zamazenta's counters that to beat it once it gets set up, they just lose to like Urshifu Pelipper, right? So it's really cool in that opinion. I do think you need when you run Pelipper on these teams, you can have. That's why I had the wide guard right there. You can afford to drop wide guard on this Zamazenta set and run iron defense plus your body press, and then you just run the wide guard on your Pelipper with a focus sash, right? And that way you still offering your team wide guard, and you also offering the setup with Zamazenta. So I actually like to run Zamazenta with iron defense because it's so good in the Calyrex Ice, and Calyrex Ice is like one of the restrictors I really dislike, right? And it's because it's so good and it's so hard to stop. Even though Calyrex Shadow is like more aggressive than Calyrex Ice, I feel like I'm so used to playing Shadow, it's not as hard to beat. And plus it's easy to remove it with like sniping it off with like a dark type attack or a ghost type attack if they're not positioned properly, right? But Calyrex Ice it's very hard to deal with even when it's out of position because of how bulky it is, right? So Zamazenta is a huge answer into Calyrex Ice because if you get like 2 or 3 iron defense up, Calyrex Ice just can't touch you for the rest of the game, right? So it's really good. And then you also offering like wide guard and stuff, right? Which Calyrex Ice doesn't like wide guard. So it's just really good into giving you like a bandage for like Calyrex Ice teams. And that's why I really like it a lot. That's why you're going to start to see like Ursaluna on those Calyrex Ice teams to help you deal with Zamazenta. But then that's when your rain team core comes in to help Zamazenta with those ground types and fire types, right? So it's really cool in my opinion. Also, like Zamazenta is weak to fighting too. Pelipper deals with fighting types too with Hurricane. So they're really like a match made in heaven in my opinion. Like they're literally like the best partners. But it's gonna be it for the Zamazenta teams. Next we're gonna have the Terapagos teams. In my opinion, I don't think Terapagos is good. These stats are just not great, man. Like I know that it goes up to like 130 special attack when it terrestrializes, but that's just like Glamora's special attack. That's not even a restricted. You get what I'm saying? Like Glamora has 130 special attack, and if you don't Terra this, you're basically using a Pokemon that just is very bulky with the Terra Shell, but doesn't really have restricted stats. So But it is like I said, it does play on these balanced teams where you like protect your chess piece, protect the king with fake out, similar to like the Calyrex Shadow teams, and you're just able to support it. And while I do like kind of just trashed on it, it is actually a huge counter in the Calyrex Ice too. I mean, not Calyrex Ice, Calyrex Shadow. And I like that like Zamazenta and Terapagos are good into the Calyrex forms, right? So if you want a bulky physical attacker to deal with Calyrex Ice, you go Zamazenta. You want a bulky special attacker to deal with Calyrex Shadow, then you go Terapagos, right? So that's really what its best role is. But I'm interested to see if it's going to win a regional because I don't think it has yet. But I think that the calm mindsets are just too slow for a Pokemon that just doesn't have this good stats. So I think Choice Specs is like the best way to run it. So that's going to be the next one. It's going to be the Terapagos Hyper Offense. I think that these Choice Specs teams with Chi-Yu, with like Choice Scarf, are the way to get the best out of this Terapagos. You can even run like Fake Tears on Fluttermane with Booster Energy. That makes you move, you're pretty much faster than everyone. You're dropping their special defense and allows Choice Specs Terapagos to kind of sweep from that point, right? You just got to worry about Wildguard users. So in that case, you run something like Mienshao. Where is it at? Mienshao, which gives you a Wildguard user, which you're gonna need Wildguard in this format, right? And also if they have Wildguard, right, then you can run something like Feint next to this, which makes Terapagos be able to break through all those Wildguards. So Mienshao is gonna be really good on Terapagos teams, as well as something like Calyrex Shadow Rider because of how much utility this thing offers, right? And then you just go White Guard, and then you could go like Knockoff, but it's best to go Gross Combat just to have that fighting type coverage, and also gives you like a really good answer into opposing Terapagos. So these teams can be very powerful and very hyper offensive, and I think that's the best way to run Terapagos because Calm Mind is usually just too slow to set up for me and for my taste. Next we have the not Zamazenta, the Zacian teams. So the first Zacian teams I want to go over is going to be the hero teams. And by hero teams, I mean like these people are stuck in the Sword and Shield era, right? They're like, oh, Zacian is the best Pokemon in the format, and it's gonna deal massive amounts of damage because of its attack stat. And wow, they did nerf its attack stat, but I can put Chien-Pao next to it to get similar damage what Zacian used to do back in Sword and Shield, right? Because next to Chien-Pao, with Chien-Pao dropping defenses, this Zacian is gonna feel like the old Zacian from Sword and Shield. But then you remember Incineroar exists in the format, and then it just comes out and intimidates both of these, and then your damage output is severely reduced, right? So these teams, if they are built around like right, you can just upright loosen them if you don't really have good answers into like Intimidate and stuff like that. Because these two are extremely fast, right? And they hit extremely hard, and if they're not checked, then they can pretty much one-shot a lot of different boards, in my opinion. So of course, then Urshifu will be there to help you with the Incineroar matchup, but it doesn't necessarily just win you the Incineroar matchup because Incineroar can also Terra, and Incineroar is also going to have teammates too, right? Which can, once it reduces the attack damage, its teammates are able to survive, a lot of different hits. And then a lot of times you'll see Ditto on these teams as well. Ditto might be carrying something like a Choice Scarf or a Focus Sash, and Ditto goes really well with Zacian because Zacian sometimes likes to play with other restricteds. I think Zacian is like the perfect like restricted partner. It was in Sword and Shield, and I still think it is a great partner now. But being partnered next to Ditto, with Ditto can turn into another restricted, just makes Zacian feel that much stronger. So that's why you see a lot of Dittos on Zacian teams. Next, we have the Zacian balance teams. These are going to be very hard to deal with when you do play against Zacian, because while they do play like protect the chess piece, Zacian is not one of those mons that actually needs a lot of protection because of its good typing and its defensive stats. 115 special defense, 115 defense, 92 HP. That's nothing to scoff at, right? So it can do well on its own, and just having like support pieces around it so it like can set up something like Sword Stance, and then just remove Incineroar with like Sacred Sword, or then if you tear it, then you just get hit with Behemoth Blade, right? These type of Zacian teams can be really good, and I think that it's gonna at least win one regional. I want to guess if somebody pilots it the right way. It is gonna have a lot of competition, but I do think that it's strong enough too. It's just that people don't really try, because when you're using Zacian, you're giving up using like Miraidon or Calyrex Ice or Calyrex Shadow, right? Or even Zamazenta, which is just outclasses Zacian in this format. So that's what people think about when they don't use Zacian. But I do think that if it's in the right players' hands, they can win a regional with it. Next, we have Dondozo teams. So Dondozo stall is going to be something that you're going to have to still prepare for. And people are going to, in the beginning of the format, they're going to be like, it's a new format. Dondozo's not good, right? Dondozo can't really do anything with all these powerful mons around. And then you run into a Dondozo stall team and then you just get, you can't even player diff them because you just lose to like the stall stuff. Weezing shutdowns your abilities, poisons you, and then Dondozo stalls you out with like rest and leftovers or chesto berry and stuff, right? So you got to be prepared for those. And then the regular Dondozo teams that can just beat you because you're not prepared to deal with Dondozo, you can't get rid of his boost. And anything that you have that can do a lot of damage to Dondozo, is teammates that are on these teams are just going to remove you, right? So these are the Dozo 2-2-2 teams where you got Dondozo Tatsugiri, then you got another duo with like Fluttermane Chiyu, then you got the third duo with like your restricted and whatever else you can play with. It can be Dragonite, it can be like Chien-Pao, it can be whatever else you want, Rillaboom. Just another mon to go next to the restricted. And then you got those 2-2-2 teams, and you'll always see these like at the top of ladders and like tournaments and stuff like that. Just, getting good placements and stuff because people just don't respect Dozo at the start of every format and they just lose to it, right? And then Dozo, they have to end up taking like Clear Smog onto Amoonguss, and then you realize that, okay, I need to deal with Dozo. I'm gonna run Clear Smog Amoonguss with Spore. And then you run into something, once they know that people are adapting to Dondozo, they'll run Steel Terror plus Safety Goggles, right? And then this is something that I hit rank number 1 with, and this just makes Amoonguss feel really sad. And if that's your only Dondozo answer, then it can't really do nothing. And then at this point, you don't even have to run Safety Goggles when you got Miraidon, but you only get that Electric Terrain for 5 turns, right? So you got to be careful of that. But if you still want to do running leftovers, you could forego the Safety Goggles. But just remember, if they have like something that can reset terrain, then your Dondozo is going to be kind of caught out. So I would still like go Safety Goggles just to be safe. But you do have the Electric Terrain with Miraidon. Next, we're going to have the Koraidon Sun Hyper teams. Now, Jump Bluff has been tearing up Regulation H, right? Joe has been piloting it to great success with his Sun team. And Marco, won internationals with Jump Bluff. So Jump Bluff has been really good. I think that people are going to still try it on the Koraidon and Groudon teams. I think that it can still be good because Jump Bluff proved that it can, stick around and just put things to sleep. Now, it can get one-shot by a lot of restricteds. But when you're outspeeding everything in the sun and putting stuff to sleep, it just gives you more room for Koraidon and Groudon to like be able to function. Setting up Tailwind for them is really good, so they outspeed everything. And also Chiyu, if your mons are asleep on the other field and Chiyu gets in, like you need to be terrified because Chiyu offers like so much damage output and enables so much damage output that it's gonna be hard to like come back into games if you're taking like 2-3 turn sleeps and Chiyu is just blasting away at you with like heat waves and dark pulses, stuff like that. Heat wave in the sun with like Fire Terror, like it's next to Koraidon, like it's so hard to switch into, right? It's like literally no switchings outside of like Flash Fire. Even if you resist it, you're still taking like 80-70%, right? If you 4 times resist it, you're still taking like 40-50%, right? 2-hit KOs and stuff. So it's really powerful, and these teams you're gonna have to watch out because I know that people are gonna be trying to use Jump Bluff and Koraidon. Mostly Koraidon, since Koraidon is better than Groudon in this format, and it's a little bit more consistent. You do have a 4 times weakness, but Terrestrialization exists, right? So I think, and they both like Terra Fire, so in that case, you might as well just go with Koraidon, which is faster, right? And Koraidon next to Jump Bluff, I think, is something that we're gonna see. So you guys should be prepared for this. You need to bring your safety goggles. You need to bring your rain teams or your weather setters to switch with the weather. You need to bring Taunt to taunt Jump Bluff. Usually it carries Covert Cloak. So faking it out and trying to remove it from the field is usually not a good idea. But you need to bring good answers into this, right? But that's going to be it for the Koraidon team. Next, we're going to have Kyogre. I think Kyogre is so slept on as a restricted. I am shocked that it did not see more results in Worlds. But I do think that it's going to have a resurgence in Regulation G Part 2. And I think that Kyogre is going to win some regionals. And I think that it's going to have, a huge target. It's not going to have a target on its back, but it's going to be like super underrated. And then it's going to blow people away. And they're going to be like, wow, why haven't we been using Kyogre? Like, it's literally, rain teams can literally beat sun teams. Kyogre does struggle against Miraidon, but you go with a Terra Grass, like you're good. You're in a good spot. You go with Terra Grass, Assault Vest, Miraidon can't really mess with you, right? Then you also have your own Tornadus to reset the rain. You got Urshifu, which gives you a physical water type alongside Kyogre. Even though they both are water types, it's not really redundant because Urshifu does something completely different than what Kyogre does. They attack on two different sides of the spectrum, and also Urshifu indexes more on breaking through protects and using fighting type coverage alongside water type coverage, and Kyogre leans more into having to outspeed your opponents and punishing like bad positioning, right? Well, they both punish bad positioning, but Kyogre kind of punishes you like you bring your water types, you get hit with like thunder, right? You bring your grass types, you get hit with ice beam, right? Choice specs, it really makes it hard to deal with. So they do, even though they're both water types, they do two completely different things. And I don't think that they kind of like are like roll compression that you can have both of them on your team. You're like, okay, Raging Bolt beats these, right? Then you got Serena with Queenly Majesty, which just makes it so that you're able to stop those thunderclaps and also threaten Raging Bolt back with you could run something like, I would say, Wide Lens, and then run Triple Axle, and then something like Ice Terror, right? Just so you can just remove Raging Bolt and allow these three to thrive, right? You can also run like a ground type on this team, like Landorus, which can help you deal with Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt does really bad into this set, right? Or you can even run something like AV Landorus T. But I would recommend this because this functions pretty well on the rain team because your Sand Shears become 100% accurate, which compensates this, which this helps you beat the Raging Bolts of the format, right? But you can also use Serena to stop like the thunderclaps and threaten back with Triple Axle. So while Raging Bolt does look good into this team, they're gonna always have answers into it because of how good they know Raging Bolt's gonna be into this team. Next, we have the Groudon Sun Gimmick teams. I think that Groudon is hugely outclassed by Koraidon. So while you will see Groudon, because in retrospect it is more bulky than Koraidon, you're gonna see it mostly on Sableye like Gravity teams because Groudon has those blades that miss, right? And the reason I say gimmick is because a lot of gimmicks exist with Groudon. Like you got like what's it called? What's the Pokemon? It gets Spicy Extract. I can't think of his name, right? Let me go back here and find his name. It's a grass and fire type. What's his name? Scovillain. That's his name. Scovillain. Sorry about that. Scovillain. So Scovillain gets like Spicy Extract plus Chlorophyll. So you can like, drop Groudon's defense but boost its attack by 2 immediately, right? Then you got like Lilligant that can go for like entrainment or coaching, which can entrainment gives Chlorophyll to Groudon, and then Groudon is like moving like super fast, right? Then you can switch Lilligant out to get your ability back. So Sableye supports with gravity, so you don't miss any Precipice Blades. And then of course like Yanmega is really good with Sableye because it gets those speed boosts. And then those fast like Hypnosis are just hard to deal with. And if you sleep and gravity's up, then Groudon comes in and just clicking Ground Terror. Like I saw this team with these two putting you to sleep. Then they switch in Groudon with like Choice Band, Ground Terror, Precipice Blades, and it just removes everything, right? So it is gimmicky, but it can like beat you in a lot of different ways. Of course, you're gonna probably see like Walking Wake on these teams. Walking Wake's really not gonna play next to Koraidon because it's like Double Dragon. It's really weak to Fluttermane, right? But it freaks really good on Groudon teams because it's a water type that can play in the sun and also gets like a speed boost if you build it in that way because it has really good stats and is able to function really well next to Groudon, right? So these teams can be really, like even this 6, like I just picked some mons that play good with Groudon, but if you look, you have, a full team that can actually thrive under sun. Like all these thrive under sun different ways, and they also all benefit like Groudon. Like Groudon can also run like Helping Hand with Choice Specs Flutter that gets a speed boost in the sun. Go for Helping Hand like Fairy Terra, Dazzling Gleams, and like how do you really deal with this, right? There, of course, you can have your Steel types and stuff like that, but then the Groudon beats the Steel types, right? That resist the Fairy types. You can have your Poison types that resist Fairy. Groudon beats them, right? So think of it kind of like Xerneas plus Groudon back in the old days, where it's Primal Groudon. Like Fairy and Ground type really complements each other really well. And then you got these, gives you like fast Grass type user that can put things to sleep, coach up Groudon, give it an ability, also threaten close combats. And then you got these that are disruptive, and then you have just Walking Wake to be your water type, right? So these teams can be really hard to deal with, but like I said, they are kind of gimmicky because of the strats that they use to enable these teams can be like, they can really work really well some games, and then can be completely shut down and work really bad and make the team feel really bad in other games. So, but just be careful because you might run into some stuff like this, and you need to be prepared for it. At least have some type of answers until like Lily and Sun, because otherwise you can just get outran by like after you, sleep powders and stuff like that, and just get ran over, right? So be prepared for those. Next, we're gonna have Lunala mystery teams. So the reason I say that these are mystery teams because you'll run into a Lunala team on a ladder, right? And then you're like, Lunala, this is a guaranteed win. You're like, oh, Calyrex Shadow exists, so why are you using a worse Psychic and Ghost type, right? But what people don't realize is while they do share the same typing, they play completely different. Lunala, while it does have a decent speed stat, it does like to play in Trick Room, right? Because it has access to Trick Room. So it plays on a completely different side of the speed spectrum than Calyrex, right? And of course you don't have like Astral Barrage, but you got Moongeist Beam that also breaks through protects. I mean, not protects, through abilities. So something like Mimikyu can get one shot by a Moongeist Beam, for instance, because you break through the disguise with your move. And then they usually like to run Terra like Fairy with Moonblast, but they could also run like Power Herb if you think that you can wall it with Incineroar. And this is something that Calyrex can't really do without going for a Terra. It's just be able to remove Incineroar with a Meteor Beam, right? Because you have, you know, base 137 special attack, and Incineroar is going down. So Lunala plays really good, but like I said, you see it on the thing and you'll be like, why are they not using Calyrex Shadow? And then you play against it, and then it has like a beautiful team built around it, because Lunala players, to really make it work, they go all out on the team building, right? These teams that I play when they have Lunala are always so like beautifully built that you're like, okay, it's Lunala, it's gonna be bad, this is a free win, and then you just lose because you underestimate Lunala. I think Lunala is gonna be one of the most underestimated restricteds, because people think that Calyrex Shadow is just a better version of it, and it's not like the whole Mewtwo thing where Mewtwo is just 100% outclassed. Lunala is outclassed, but it does something different, offers something different than Calyrex Shadow can offer you, right? And then Shadow Shield is like a really cool ability that makes, you know, you take less damage when you're at half. So you're not, it's always like, you're not spooked by like dark type attacks or ghost type attacks just randomly being teched on and one-shotting you, because you have that Shadow Shield, right? It always good to Terra to take less damage, but if you don't have Terra, or you just don't need the Terra, you want to save it, you can actually be able to take one of those surprise tech moves, right? So Lunala's really good in that aspect. So don't underestimate Lunala, man. I'm telling you, you're going to see a team on a ladder, and it's going to be a really cool Lunala team that's built around it, and they're going to be able to play really good with it and know their matchups, know how to beat all different types of teams. So don't underestimate those. Next, we're going to have the Grimsnar Screens teams. These teams are going to come, you're going to see these with like Calyrex Ice, see these with Calyrex Shadow, Miraidon, all different types, Zamazenta. You'll see it with Terapagos, probably Terapagos the most, because that extra bulk is like really good. But Grimsnar is just really good with like, you can go like Trick Iron Ball, Trick Lagging Tail. Like tricking a Lagging Tail onto a restricted just really cripples it when it just can't move first, right? Also like tricking it onto like Calyrex Ice, taking that Clear Amulet so you can intimidate it, and then being able to make it move last is just really solid, even if they get Trick Room up. And then like Screens is just so good. Like of course you can run like Light Clay to get more turns, but just giving your restricteds extra bulk when they're already pretty bulky, this makes this really good. And I'm always a fan of Spirit Break. Spirit Break is just so good into like all the special attackers, and it just does more damage across the board. Whether it's Foul Play, only does damage really good into physical attackers that don't resist Foul Play, right? When Foul Play hits physical attackers for super effective, it is way better than Spirit Break. But on more occasions, you're gonna just be needed to like hit something for decent damage, and Spirit Break is gonna be a little bit more consistent in that for me. And also, Spirit Break does really good at hitting like dark types, which Grimsnar is also a dark types, and like going against opposing like Grimsnar, hitting them with Foul Play just doesn't get the job done when it 4 times resisted, right? So Spirit Break is just really good in my opinion. And last but not least, I gotta mention these teams. But Smeargle and Muck, this strategy, while you think, okay, it was annoying in Regulation H, but Regulation G come back, we're not going to see it. I have seen so many teams with this still function, and they always have a Calyrex Shadow on their teams, right? and they're able to still do a lot of these things with, you know, evasion, where Murkrow goes down, and then with Power Alchemy, you take Murkrow's ability, get mooted, and you just go for like minimize. And then these are hard to deal with, and then you end up getting off the field. If you can somehow get it off the field, then you got to deal with Calyrex Shadow, right? So they can be really, really oppressive, and you guys need to have moves that can hit mons that have like evasion boost, or are hard to see, like moves that can't miss, or moves that ignore evasion, stuff like that, moves that ignore like certain abilities and all that. You really need that, at least one of those type of mons or something like that on your team, so you can deal with this. Even like a heavy slam, which does like really good damage once this thing gets really small. Something like Sacred Sword from Zacian, which can't miss. It ignores the evasion boost, right? It ignores boost, so you can still hit it with Sacred Sword, right? But you just need to be prepared for these teams, because these teams, while I feel like Hard Trick Room is very frustrating, these teams are very just annoying to lose to, because you feel like you're better than the player, but you just lost to a team because you just missed all your moves, and they're playing towards hoping that you miss all your moves, right? Which in my opinion is not a good way to play the game. Also, Haze, like I'm looking at it right here, Haze is just taking this onto your team is a good answer into this, because you can haze away the boost, and it can't dodge Haze because Haze hits the field. It doesn't actually target the specific mon. That's why Gholdengo can be hit with Haze, because it targets the entire board and not just a specific mon. So that is a good tech to have on there. It also helps you with Dondozo. So when you do run into these muck teams, you're able to deal with them, right? But like I said, these teams are very irritating to fight against, and you always feel like you're better than the other player, but you just missed your attacks, right? But that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is just 20 teams I gave you that you should be starting to prepare for. Of course, there'll be other, you know, variants of these teams and other restricteds that are not listed here that'll be used. But just as a whole, the most common things that you're going to be seeing at the beginning of the format, you're going to see variants of all these different types of teams, right? So if you need some help with this, you know, just go down this list and look at the teams and kind of build your team around having, like, you know, just specific answers. A lot of these teams, you may have like certain checks that can help you deal with like multiple different variants of all these teams and stuff like that. And that's a good way to build your teams. But if you guys like this type of VGC content where I'm helping you guys, you know, prepare for regulations, go ahead and subscribe for me. Turn those post notifications, because we are posting daily Pokemon content. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay tuned. More videos soon. Deuces.